Here we go. We're going to go with our globe list, and we're going to scroll up a little bit here, and we're going to read the next one. Everything about space is fake. NASA has been faking it. They had Apollo 1 killed and completely faked the moon landings. Nothing they have is true or real. And that means, seriously, everything they do is CGI. Yes, it's all CGI. Everything. In one
themselves. First, we have Buzz Aldrin, who publicly stated not once, but 3 times that we have not gone and that we did not go to the moon. Roll clip.
What was the scariest moment of the journey?
Scariest? It didn't happen. It could have been scary.
We went down and we watched you guys land on the moon,
No,
which
you
was...
didn't. No, you didn't.
What?
Because there wasn't any television. There wasn't anybody taking a picture. You watched animation. So you associated what you saw with...
I have very hazy memories.
I know.
Well, no, but what we saw was we all were gathered around the old curved top radio and listened.
Talking about, how many feet we were going to the left and right. And then I said, contact light, engine stop.
It's
and a few
exciting.
other things. And then Neil said, Houston, Tranquility Base, the Eagle has landed. Man, how about that?
That was very exciting.
Not a bad line.
Wow. Yeah.
Has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And
Next, we have Neil Armstrong, who refuses to swear on the Bible that we walked on the moon, which, okay, nobody is requiring him to do so, but he also refused to have his photo taken on the moon, and he quit NASA just 2 years after walking on the moon. Was he ready to retire, or was he feeling guilty for lying to the entire American public? I guess we will never know, but the video footage taken of the astronauts directly after they got back from the moon mission makes me feel like he didn't want to be a part of it anymore. This was them before the moon mission, and this was them directly after. You can't tell me that they don't look like a bunch of guilty dogs. Like they just got back from walking on the moon. If I just got back from walking on the moon, I would not be able to stop talking about it. But they look like they don't want to talk about it at all. Maybe it's just me, but they literally look like they were being interrogated. And they also said that they didn't see any stars while they were on the moon, but you'd think that being on a rock in space with no atmosphere, you'd have the clearest view of the stars and the Milky Way galaxy that anybody has ever had.
We're never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see. I don't remember seeing any.
They didn't even take one photo of the stars from the moon. But whatever. They said it was too bright. They said it was daytime on the moon, which this photo was taken from the moon landing, and the bottom half of Earth is in darkness, which would mean that it would be daytime. But if the sun was directly overhead of them, like how the Earth showed in the last photo that I showed you, how are their shadows incredibly long? This would mean that the sun would have to be directly to the side of them and not overhead. I've also seen the argument that multiple objects had shadows pointing in different directions, which would be entirely impossible if their only source of light was the sun, which is what they said. But to create two objects having different directional shadows like this, you would have to have two sources of light, like on a movie set. Space may be the final frontier, but it was made in a Hollywood basement. Even the astronauts themselves have a plaque on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for public television. But whatever, again, this is all just speculation and things that just don't add up to me. And if you Google any of the questions that I've asked so far, you will get some kind of BS explanation for every single one. Because, newsflash, the government has control over Google and the media. Why do you think if you Google any government conspiracy ever, you are bombarded with negative fact checkers? But that is for a whole nother video on a whole nother rabbit hole on a different day. But let me tell you the real kicker, because this is what absolutely solidified to me that we did not go to the moon. There is something called the Van Allen radiation belt that is located between 8,000 and 40,000 miles of the surface of the Earth. Basically, it is a belt of trapped high-energy radiation particles that are more harmful to humans than X-rays. The Van Allen belt is at minimum 3,140 degrees Fahrenheit and at maximum 35,500 degrees Fahrenheit, and the astronauts had to pass through it for an hour to get to the moon. How did a rocket made of stainless steel, titanium, and aluminum make it through the Van Allen radiation belt of at minimum 3,140 degrees when the melting point of stainless steel is 2,500 degrees, the melting point of titanium is 3,000 degrees, and the melting point of aluminum is 1,100 degrees? And then they had to travel 238,000 more miles to the moon after passing through such high temperatures for an hour. If this doesn't raise some eyebrows, let's talk about how we haven't been back in over half a century, even though the technology that we have now is over 10 times more advanced. The farthest that we have sent man since the Apollo 11 missions is 1,408 kilometers, or 875 miles. Remember, the moon is 239,000 miles away. You're telling me that we went 273 times farther back in 1969? And we were able to land the module perfectly on the moon, even though NASA's Apollo guidance computer has less computing technology than a toaster and is less advanced than a pocket calculator. And President Nixon called the moon on a landline 239,000 miles away, even though I can't get service on a back road nowadays. And let's just watch the video of the Apollo 11 module taking off from the moon to head back to Earth.
Completed. 3, 2, 1, ignition. Right away, Houston. Vector good. X5.
Besides the fact that that whole thing looks incredibly fake, at least to me, given the rainbow sparks that flew off of it as soon as it headed up, and it didn't even leave a crater or disturb any dust around it. How did the camera pan up and focus on the module after everybody had already left the moon? There was nobody operating the camera. You think they did that all the way from Earth back in 1969? And how did the footage get back to Earth after they recorded it on the moon? This was before the internet. This was 1969. And let's not forget that the module had to perfectly reconnect with the command module that had been revolving around the moon this entire time, and then head back through the Van Allen radiation belt. Hopefully this is enough for you to start asking questions, but if not, don't worry, I'm gonna keep going. This is a photo taken of the dark side of the moon that clearly shows the proportions of the moon compared to the Earth. The moon is allegedly 1/4 the size of Earth. If that image is true, how can this image also be true? If we were on the lunar surface, the Earth would appear huge. But given this photo, these proportions are absolutely not the same. Hopefully by now we know that NASA is no stranger to Photoshop, given that the man that creates the blue marble image, Robert Simmons, says that it is Photoshop because it has to be.
It is Photoshopped, but
But if you don't believe me and you don't believe him, let me show you some examples. This is the blue marble image from 2012. Take a good look at how big America is in this image. And this is the blue marble image from 2002. Same perspective, same angle, and America is 1/4 the size. Did America just quadruple in size over 10 years, or is this Photoshop? It's Photoshop. Here's another image that NASA put out taken by the Galileo spacecraft. It's called the family portrait. It is supposed to be an accurate image, a realistic photo, literally taken by a spacecraft. You can see the proportions of the moon to the Earth. A moon is a fourth the size. It's pretty close. But if that image is true, how can this image also be true? This was also put out by NASA. The moon is way smaller or way farther away. Either way, if this image is true, the image that I just showed you could not also be true. I'm just saying that with a $70 million a day budget, you'd think that they'd be able to produce more realistic and more proportionally accurate images, given that they do in fact use Photoshop.